I'll knock him back down.
Yeah.
And he needs to learn how to be a real grown up and help his family as an adult, as a man, and as as a responsible parent. And is he a parent actually? I don't know.
I'm not sure.
But anyway, as a responsible person to sort of and to look after himself.
Yeah.
And if he's taking the steps to do that, then you can't be too critical of him at least acknowledging that at this stage and taking the steps.
Yeah, absolutely. And they'll love a redemption story down under, won't they? So this will play brilliantly when he gets, into the first team somewhere again. They'll bum this, won't they? So anyway, good luck to him. And finally, a two-part, and finally I couldn't split these two, so we'll start with the first one. Interstate Super Cup team, the Mackay Cutters, announced this morning on their Facebook page the signing of, drumroll please, one Setimata Sarr on a 3-year contract with the club. The former Widnes, Hull FC and Catalans player left Super League at the end of this season. The Samoan-born international will move from England to Mackay with his English wife Claire and their 2 young children. Sarr will begin the 2017 season with the Cutters, where he has been earmarked for a key role by their new coach, Steve Shepherd. Always got a bit of a soft spot for Setimata Sarr. Don't ask me why.
Yeah, I was going to ask you why we were talking about this.
I just like the guy, and he tries really hard, and for all the errors and cock-ups and stuff, he's, good for him.
When he first came into the Super League, I was dead excited by what he could do.
Is that prior to when he went? He went to London Catalan before the London Irish move? I thought he was particularly impressive. Since then, he's been kind of a bit of an error machine, but a lovable error machine for me. That's why he made the first part of the and finally, and the real and finally. Australian Jillaroos captain Ruan Smith has signed the first paid contract in Women's Rugby League, a 1-year deal with NRL side the Cronulla Sharks. Sims, who's 34, has captained her New South Wales state as well as her country and is now classed as a semi-professional. The deal coincides with the proposed launch of an Australian women's competition in 2017 and the World Cup to run alongside the men's tournament. It's a hugely exciting moment, she said. I feel very privileged. Sims is the sister of Warrington prop Ashton Sims and Newcastle duo Tarek and Corbin. It's so exciting to be in a position where we'll be considered semi-professional and to be paid to play the game that we love, she added. She does look a bit like her brothers, not so much Ashton, but more Tarek.
It's good for
fantastic.
It's good for the growth of the sport, in every single sense. That there's more people getting on board in professionalised capacities, be it different countries getting involved, different teams getting involved, women's teams getting involved. It's good.
Yeah, it's a superb story, isn't it?
Yeah,
feel good story of the week.
I don't understand. So the Cronulla Sharks must have a ladies' team then?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Don't ask me how many ladies they've got recruited today. It might just be Ruan Sims running out. Since I presume they'll have at least 17 more.
I've got to say, at the Nines in the last few years, the sort of mini series that they've been running
between the Ferns and the Jillaroos
have been really exciting.
Yeah,
because they tend to be quite tensely fought games rather than the exhibition stuff you'd get at the Nines.
Yeah,
outside of that, they're like a nice tonic to the flamboyance in a weird way for us embittered northerners in the middle of winter up here.
Like a bit of biff, don't we? That's it. So, right, that's news from around the world of rugby league. Then let's take a look back now at the first 2 rounds of the Four Nations. Right, let's start on the Four Nations then. Round 1, Mark. A couple of Friday nights ago now, Australia took on Scotland over at the Lightstream Stadium. As you might expect, a resounding victory for the Green and Golds, 54 points to 12 in favour of our Southern Hemispheric cousins. Tries from Ferguson, 2 from Cronk, Maloney, 2 from Mansour, Dugan, Frizzell, the Welsh international, Morgan and Trebojevic, with Maloney kicking 7 goals. Scotland's tries coming from Ryan Brearley, Ben Kavanagh and 2 goals from Danny Brough. Scotland come out of this with quite a bit of credit there, don't they?
Well,
their performance was plucky.
Do you know what? I want to go away from this narrative a little bit, particularly from this first game. And I was actually a little bit disappointed by Scotland.
Right.
I thought Scotland kind of didn't help themselves out. I mean, yeah, they had the odd championship player in there and a couple of... And the bench wasn't particularly of a high calibre of player, sort of thing. And in the starting lineup, yes, there was a couple of championship players in the back row there, but generally these were NRL and Super League players. Yeah. Some of them are players who've won grand finals on either side of the world, or played in finals on either side of the world. Yeah. Their back five is arguably as good as any in the tournament. Mm-hmm. You know, you've got a Cowboys centre, a Cowboys fullback, a Wigan winger, a Warrington winger. Yeah. And, okay, Ewan Aitken is still up and coming almost, but I think he's a decent looking player for the St George Dragons. And then they even had the Huddersfield halfback pairing playing. Yeah. So a Super League halfback pair. I know Brealey's still finding his feet to some level, but then you look at Adam Walker had a really good season for Hull and actually shrugged off the booze quite well, didn't he? Over at the live stream. And Douglas, I actually think at hooker, obviously that wasn't a position of necessarily of strength for them, but Liam Hood did a cracking job. Yeah. And I'm not saying that I'm disappointed in them that I think they were poor and all the time and stuff, but they did some silly things. They made a lot of mistakes early on. Yeah. And they put pressure on themselves, and then they couldn't react to that very well because they were playing against a very, very high quality side. And the scoreline is not damaging for Scotland, but the way it came about, I think, I didn't really... They played, yes, they were competitive with them for 25 minutes, half an hour either side of half time, and well done to Scotland for that. But I think Scotland could have done better. I think Scotland should have come away from this game thinking, we're better than this, lads. Yeah. We're better than having 4 tries, 5 tries put on us in 15 minutes on 2 occasions.
The start did it for them, didn't it? That was the thing. The opening sort of first 25 minutes was where Australia blew them away, really. They just didn't match them at that point. And then realistically, with the score what it was at half time, there is no coming back, really, is there?
Do you get what I mean, though?
Yeah,
in terms of...
Oh, yeah. It's not
I expected a little bit more from them.
It's not a Challenge Cup round. It's not an early Challenge Cup game where it's a load of professionals against some postmen from
what I do get is this team has been thrown together at the last minute and hasn't had much time together. And I have a lot of time and respect for Steve McCormack. And I think he has done a good job putting the team together that he's put together for this tournament. Don't get me wrong about any of those things. I'm saying this because of how much I rate him as a coach, them as players, that I actually feel if they'd have got blown away when the interchanges were happening, and obviously their interchanges were a little bit offset than what you would normally expect because of managing some of the lower grade players that are in and around there, but then you might understand it a bit more. But that isn't really how it went down. And it was players like Danny Brough making silly mistakes early doors.
And do you feel like players like Danny Brough maybe take the mantle of or take too much responsibility or take too much pressure on themselves to try and make everything happen through them, and that's where the errors come from in his performance?
Only as much as he does in Huddersfield shirt.
That's exactly what I mean.
I don't think he did it as much in the World Cup when he had Robson, wasn't it, alongside him? So, and that was a little bit different, I suppose, because he had another senior-ish half-back there. But Australia were clinical, scored some really great tries where they just found massive holes.
I mean, they're beyond razor sharp, aren't they?
Moylan and Maloney, for me, were really good. Mansour, him getting injured after this is a shame because he was exciting to watch. Tyson Frizzell ran some great lines. The Trebojevic try, I think that was the last try, wasn't it? That was quite a good effort. All in all, obviously we got what we expected in the scoreline, and we'll say Scotland didn't embarrass themselves and all of those things. But I want to get away from the platitudes. I want to say
could have expected more.
Could have done.
Well, they do go on to deliver a stronger performance in the second round.
A stronger start to a game. Yeah. But anyway, after this game, I was left sort of thinking there's never an inevitability. Australia are going to change that side up, and it's going to potentially get even better. And look how easy it was at times for them to just flick into gear and do something really special. So I suppose that's my sort of take. We don't have any stats and stuff on this one.
No, but we do have some fan reviews. Elliot Wrench got in touch. He said, well, that was a result we probably expected, but maybe not the scoreline. When you look at the team sheets, the Scots were rumbled in the first half by well-worked plays and then gave a glimpse of what they are capable of in the second. Some of the defending was very Braveheart, but then asleep they went. Still entertaining stuff and not an embarrassment by any means. Wally Frogmore got in touch from in Australia, said, in a game where the result was a foregone conclusion, I think the Scots can hold their heads high. Played well in patches, but made too many errors to keep up with a stronger, albeit reserve, team. Okay, I'm just being polite. It was a shambles of a game.
Scotland did make too many errors, I felt.
Yeah, I agree. Alfie got in touch, our friend Darren. He said, no shame for Scotland in that game. It was always going to be a landslide. Defence for Scotland was better than I expected. Interesting to see that Australia were not focusing on quick play the ball as much as they would normally, but they were focusing more on leg drive and standing in the tackle more, especially from their props. Sorry, my bad, they're massive wingers. Anyway, I totally agree with what Mark says because it's rude not to smiley face. Now you're learning, Darren. Tyler Casfan got in touch. He said, very much a one-sided game to begin with, but much better in the second half when Scotland had a go. They had nothing to lose and showed lots of pride in the shirt.
Do you know what? A couple of players I would pick out and that embodied that sort of thing? We mentioned Liam Hood. The second, Ben Helliwell, I thought he came on and he played most of his time in the centres. I think of him as a centre, but he came on in the back row, didn't he? Because there was a couple of injuries. Ben Kavanagh, who scored good try, but went off for a head, not good for a time, and that sort of stuff. I think he did a good job.
Yeah, good play, Ben Helliwell, ex-Bradford Bull. Chris Macy got in touch. He said, I don't think anyone could really say that they weren't expecting this result. The Aussies were just the Aussies and Scotland got some valuable experience there. A shame they conceded over 50 points, and if they had played how they did late in the first and early in the second half, I reckon it could have been a far more respectable scoreline. Fair play to them. They didn't roll over at any point, just got predictably outmatched. It was an enjoyable second half. Lee Whitnell, who is the Super League Pod Rookie of the Year, got in touch and said, first things first, Smith, Cronk, Maloney, Moyland et al. Playing any game in a two-team Rugby League city in front of 5,000 people is shameful. It should have been played in Scotland. The game itself felt like an exhibition, especially in the first half. Even the, inverted commas, Scottish NRL players looked overawed. Perhaps a packed stadium with more atmosphere could have created a better contest. We'll never know. We'll find out this weekend when the Scots play up in Cumbria, won't we? That might be a bit more partisan. You might get a bit more.
I hope so. I do think
more vim and vigour.
I mean,
I do take his point.
I don't want to focus on the negatives because I feel like that's being done enough elsewhere. But it'd be without balance of us to touch on them, and that's like Lee's done that there. It wasn't a good enough crowd. But we weren't there, so who were we to moan?
Yeah, that's it. We were comfortably ensconced, nice and warm, watching it on Premier Sports like the vast majority of people. Second game in the first round of fixtures then, over at the John Smith Stadium, saw England taking on the Kiwis, and it was a drop goal ultimately that was the difference between the two sides. Sean Johnson putting that one over after about 60 minutes. Tries for England came from McGillvray.
66 minutes.
Thank you. Tries for England came from McGillvray and Ryan Hall, with Gareth Widdop kicking 4 goals. New Zealand's tries, a brace for Jordan Rapana, and a Johnson try, a drop goal from Johnson, as well as 2 goals from Kahu. So, first of all, I don't want to talk about whether or not the drop goal was missed or not, because that would be to miss the point entirely about how England had every opportunity to put New Zealand to the sword, particularly in the first 25 minutes of this game, and absolutely shit it out of their arses. I was
possibly more upset and disappointed by the World Cup semi-final. I don't think I've been as angry and frustrated by an England performance and side than I was for this game. Both centres coughed up. Well, Sargentson coughed up a couple of half chances and generally didn't look threatening. Watkins basically dropped 2 tries in the first 20 minutes that were tries.
Yeah.
So so those